Welcome to That's Good Sports. I am Brandon Perna. It's the season opener, football season opener, Broncos versus Seahawks, which also means it's time for me to look more unqualified than Post Malone in an interview for an accounting position. Today we have the prediction or preview episode for real football. Broncos Seahawks here in Denver for some Sunday day football. I haven't been this excited for a Broncos Seahawks game since, oh God, oh no, there I go again, going to the darkest place I can imagine, Super Bowl 48. I have had colonoscopies more enjoyable than that game. Today, as I lube you up for this sex fest we call a football game, I'll give you 3 reasons I think the Broncos can win, and 3 reasons I think the Seahawks can win. 3 for 3, like ESPN's 30 for 30, but 20 minutes shorter and a lot less informed. That's good sports. Please subscribe here to this YouTube channel if you're new. If you're old and already subbed, click that dumb little notification button. Also, big dick Patreon shout outs at the end of this episode. And I have to say, my friends from Squad QL are back sponsoring my show. They were sponsors last year. If you play fantasy football and need help managing your team or multiple teams, download the Squad QL app. This fantasy tool gives you an unfair advantage over all of your clueless fantasy opponents. Squad QL can manage multiple leagues from multiple fantasy sites, and it will set and optimize your lineup with the click of one button, and it factors in different scoring systems from different leagues. There's a link in the description, or go to squadql.com to download the app and dominate your league. You dominatrix, you. Some of the headlines heading into this game are Seahawks safety Earl Thomas finally realized he was not getting out of Seattle this year and showed up to the team facility, but he will not play this weekend. That means Seattle's defense will be without Thomas, Kam Chancellor, who retired, Cliff Avril, who retired, Richard Sherman, who's in San Francisco, Michael Bennett, who's in Philadelphia, Sheldon Richardson, who's in Minnesota, and KJ Wright out with an injury. And offensive lineman DJ Fluker is out of the game with a hamstring injury. The Broncos are actually pretty healthy. The big news is Shaquem Griffin, the first man to play in the league without a hand, will get the start in place of KJ Wright at linebacker. Shaquem had his left hand amputated when he was 4, and his brother to Shaquill Griffin, a corner already on the Seahawks team. And it's really one of the coolest stories in the NFL this season, this offseason with the draft. And even without a left hand, many people believe Griffin is a more accurate passer than former left-handed quarterback Tim Tebow. I'll start with the reason both of these teams could lose. If trends continue from last season, it's the goddamn offensive lines. These two lines have been more dissed than Eminem and Machine Gun Kelly in a therapy session. Are you Team Kelly or Team Eminem? Seattle has been one of the few teams in the league the last 2 seasons with the rare, distinct honor of having a worse offensive line than the Broncos, which is crazy because Seattle has a good quarterback who compensates for their terrible play. From left to right on that Seattle line, you have Dwayne Brown. He's been pretty good, getting old, I'll admit, and is arguably, though, the best player on that line. Then it's a who's who of who the hell is that guy? Pro Football Focus is projecting improvement for both the Broncos and Seattle's lines in 2018. Denver's jumping from 24th overall to 19th, and Seattle's jumping from worst or second worst overall to third worst. For the Broncos, the cautiously positive news from the preseason is that in 61 snaps, new right tackle Jared Veldheer allowed 0 pressures, which is tied with Case Keenum, who also allowed 0 pressures. If Veldheer holds up throughout the season with play on par of what he did in the preseason, this line will be slightly above average. And we will take slightly above average. Like an unathletic, very tall man playing volleyball. Slightly above average. I think Denver has a better offensive line. And I also think the weakest part of the Seahawks team, their line, is facing the Broncos' greatest strength, the D-line and pass rushers. Russell Wilson is going to have to be magical to make that not matter. I'm talking David Blaine in Neverland on mushrooms while he sword fights Captain Hook while simultaneously making Captain Hook's ship disappear type magical. A reason to be hopeful in Seattle, though, is Russell Wilson. He's a reason they could win this game. Until we learn what that Pacific Northwest defense is all about, he is the only reason this team might be good. He carries that offense, has one elite weapon in receiver Doug Baldwin, and just finds ways to keep his team in games. Now, I'm not a Russell Wilson fan, but I'm a fan of the way he plays. Next to Aaron Rodgers, he's one of the most entertaining quarterbacks to watch and is probably the best in the game at handling pass rush pressure. Well, because if he wasn't, he'd be fucking dead. What makes me nervous about Wilson is the way he extends plays, which will put pressure on the Broncos secondary, and I'm not sure how good the corners are going to be this year in Denver. Wilson forces your secondary to cover receivers longer. I'm not worried about Chris Harris, but Bradley Roby, Tremaine Brock, and the aging Adam Jones covering, say, speedster Tyler Lockett for extended time, or Doug Baldwin, who communicates telepathically with Russell Wilson. Extended coverage in the secondary worries me. I do know if Adam Jones covers Brandon Marshall, the two longtime NFL vets can talk about how much better football used to be when they didn't have to wear face masks. A reason the Broncos could win? Seattle safeties. Earl Thomas not playing, and he is hands down one of the best coverage safeties in the NFL. He's also a hard hitter, so receivers going deep or across the middle for the Broncos will be a little bit safer. Kam Chancellor retired this offseason. He was probably the hardest hitting safety in the league, which took a toll on his body. That leaves Tedrick Thompson and Bradley McDougald as their starting safeties. Thompson, of course, played college ball here in Colorado at CU, so we're rooting for his success, just not on Sunday. As a second-year player, I think he's bound to make some mistakes. McDougald will be the vet back there, coming off of his best season, but not a guy who is on par with Thomas or Chancellor, which means I think Keenum, another reason the Broncos could win, will have opportunities to connect on the deep ball, something this offense has missed for the last 2 to 3 years. I don't know if it will be Sanders, Thomas, or Sutton deep, but there's definitely a mismatch opportunity there for the Broncos passing game. And I think for this season, the Broncos, with their rookie wide receivers, Sutton and Hamilton, have more legitimate receiving targets than they've had for a while. A reason Seattle could win. Their running backs could change the game. Now, Seattle has a bunch of backs you probably don't know. Chris Carson, Rashad Penny, Mike Davis, and CJ Prosise. Carson and first-round pick Rashad Penny will most likely be in rotation as the 1A and 1B backs. My concern is the Broncos' run defense stopping them. Now, it's really hard to tell what is real and what is a facade from the preseason, but the Denver run D did not look great. They gave up 56 yards to Adrian Peterson, a 5.1 per carry average against the starters. Latavius Murray gashed them in the first game with 10.8 yards per carry, 4 carries for 43 yards. Again, Seattle's line was horrible last year, especially in the run blocking department. They may be terrible again, but if this team runs well against the Broncos, I will be very concerned about what that means for the Denver D moving forward. I mean, just look how good Rashad Penny was week 1, getting stuffed at the line of scrimmage. This could be a real problem for the Broncos defense. But the final key for a Broncos victory is Case Keenum and ball security. Oh my God, can you believe I said the quarterback is important for a win? What an original idea, Brandon! But it's true, and it's simple. This is the first time in several years I expect the Broncos quarterback to carry the offense. In a true demonstration of team unity, the 3 starting Broncos quarterbacks threw 22 picks in 2017. Denver also lost 12 fumbles. That's 34 turnovers. That's 2.1 turnovers per game. All Case Keenum and the running backs and ball catchers need to do to be better than last season on offense is protect the ball. We know Keenum only threw 7 picks last year. Royce Freeman, very good ball security at Oregon. In 947 rush attempts, he lost 4 fumbles. In 69 rush attempts, Jamal Charles lost 2 last year in Denver. The Seahawks defense last season, average against the run, giving up 114 yards per game, 14 rushing TDs, which was tied for 7th most, and I don't think losing Avril, Bennett, Richardson, and Sherman, who was a big part of the run defense, makes that unit better. Now don't get me wrong, Bobby Wagner will still light a running back up. Wagner is a tremendous middle linebacker, but the Broncos have a solution for that, and his name is Andy Manovich. To recap, for Seattle, their keys are Russell Wilson, the rushing attack, and not a bottom feeder level performance from the offensive line. That could carry them to a week 1 victory. For the Broncos, it's Case Keenum and ball security, average offensive line play, and the deep ball could be the Broncos' route to success. Now, I really do think the Broncos get a win in this game. I have to. I'm a Broncos fan. But I also believe they have a better team than Seattle this year. Now, I was listening to 104.3 The Fan today, and their theme or forced narrative for every show to discuss was, is this a must-win game for the Broncos? No, it's not a must-win game for any team in the fucking league. It's week 1, so why even ask that question? It's literally one of the only weeks the answer is a resounding no. Denver won week 1 against the Chargers, a division rival last year, and it didn't mean shit. Seattle is an NFC team, so it's even less pressing for either team to get a victory this weekend. It's the NFL. Every win is important, but that's what makes these games fun to watch. And I do think Denver walks away with the victory here, 30-20. That's my prediction. Now, BetDSI has the over-under for the Broncos win total this season at 7, meaning they think they will win 7 games this year. Seattle's at 7.5, which I think is high. So I bet on the Broncos to win more than 7 games and the Seahawks to win less than 7.5 games. If you want to do some legal sports betting, use my promo code GS100 at betdsi.com and they will match your initial deposit up to $1,000. Link in the description with Squad QL, as those are both paid sponsors of this show. I do have Big Dick Patreon shoutouts for Jeremy Jeremy, a giant $20 donation from Ironsides. Alex Woodward upping to $3. Alex C, $5. Wow, I love people named Alex this month. Kyle Cherry, Jordan Rosales, and Super Mario from the live stream Super Chats. Thank you guys for your donations. Patreon is how I make a living. You can support it, patreon.com/ThatsGoodSports. And you have reached the conclusion to That's Good Sports. Please subscribe here on YouTube. Subscribe, share this video with your friends, give it a thumbs up. You know, a thumbs up is good. And go Broncos. And don't go Seahawks. Don't go. You better lose, Seattle. You better fucking lose.